and welcome back to the workshop. Joining me is Steve Purves from Accurascale, and following the recent announcement of their brand new double-O gauge Class 60 locomotive, we're going to run through some of the brand new models that are expected on retailer shelves in the not too distant future. So, Steve, welcome along. Your Class 60. Tell us about the project.
So this has been a bit of a labour of love for many years for me. Even before I was at Accurascale, I've been interested virtually all my life in Class 60, and being able to produce one was, quite high on my list of wants. So when I joined the company and they sort of said, well, where do you want to go from here? Well, Class 60 was top of that list. And, well, the results are to be seen in front of us today. And, we've just got our heads down, got it made, and here they are.
Now, you've worked on the real things, haven't you?
Yes, so, back at the start of my professional career, I worked for EWS. I was based at Towton Depot, so I looked after Class 60s there, doing various exams on them, various fitting work. So, it's been a part of my life professionally for a long time. And again, a very good friend of mine was commissioning engineer on Class 60 back in 1989. So through my association with him, they've always been, close to me in that respect. So we've got a real good foundation of knowledge to be able to deliver the 60 in all of its forms and all of its variants, because many people think, with them being quite a modern locomotive, that the variations that you'd see on things like Class 37 and 47 are not present. Well, they kind of are. And the nature of Class 60 is because it was introduced over such a short period of time, just 13 months from sort of concept to delivery of the first one. There was a lot of little bugs in the system to iron out. And again, a friend of mine who worked on them at commissioning was responsible for many of those modifications. So he was able to give us a good knowledge on when those changes were implemented and what they were for and which locos they affected. So I think really the knowledge that we have at that part of the project cannot be beaten.
They took some time to get into service, didn't they?
Yeah, there was essentially, it boiled down to a liquidated damages claim from British Rail because the last few weren't quite ready and locos were withdrawn or held. But the first sort of 12 were initially introduced. Obviously, one went out for testing, 1 and 2 went out for testing. But then of the first 12, which really exhibited the big differences between those and the rest of the fleet, they went for artisan training at various depots around the country that would house Class 60. And then there was others that were used as test beds for things like the roof modifications, and because they were pressed into service so soon, some of the features like the multiple working door on the end, the buffer beam corner covers, the fiberglass corner covers, they also weren't fitted to those first machines. So there's the first sort of 2 or 3 years of their existence, there was many little modifications that happened. Everyone always draws attention to 001 with the grey plough and the twin exit exhaust, maybe even the cab windows, but there's about 5 or 6 other small differences with 001 that can pinpoint it to almost a day or a date. So ours is as it left brush on day one on one traction motor, incidentally up to Derby. But that condition will take it all the way through commissioning testing at Mickleover and then Old Dolby. At some point it lost the grey plough then at Old Dolby. The twin exit exhaust was removed quite soon because that filled the clean air room with engine fumes. So they reverted to a single exit exhaust. Our model will come with 2, so you can change it between the others. But yeah, so there was all sorts of modifications early on. And later on, you've got differences. There was a common problem with the Lindsay tanks, and during the load haul period, this particular train resulted in them running out of fuel quite often, and they couldn't do the whole trip without fueling. And there was a couple of high-profile incidents at Lincoln where they ran out of fuel. So there was a modification that happened underneath where the compressors go, and a long-range fuel tank was added in there, which resulted in some equipment being moved around. So we've got all of that in there, so the right model carries the right pieces at the right time.
Fantastic. We'll talk some of the detailed differences in a moment. how many models are you planning for the initial batch of releases?
So initially there'll be, I believe, 11 in the first wave. Some of those will be exclusive. Some of them, obviously, we've announced so many now. So there are a few exclusives still to come, and they will appear in good time. But obviously they'll be available both in DC and DCC sound fitted.
Talk us through some of the main specification that's applicable to all of them.
So very much like the Class 66 that's just been delivered, the package here is a central cam motor, twin flywheels, all-wheel drive, all-wheel pickup. It's got the full Accurascale speaker, the smaller sugar cube speaker, the stay alive, the hall sensors for bogie rotation sensing for your flange squeal. You've got the lighting, so you've got desk lights, which is a bit of a trademark of ours now. Day and night running lights. You've got hazard lights. You've got the later LED BMAC lights. The original BMAC, people say they're Y-Packs, but they're not the BMAC lights on this 60. So you've got the two versions of the lights. We've got lights in the rad room. It's got the full package. The whole locomotive weighs 825 grams complete.
I was going to say, having lifted one or two of these up, they're a hefty piece of kit.
Yes, I believe they're the heaviest locomotive we've ever produced. So they really will, to use the phrase, move mountains.
There's a fair bit of metal inside those.
Yeah.
I noticed, we'll talk about some of the detailed differences now, but just looking at these two locomotives in front of us here, 60007, 60001, just looking through the radiator grills, you can see there's even detailed differences behind the radiators. Yeah,
so just taking the rad room as a single piece there. When the first, as I said, when we launched the project, when the first locomotives were introduced, the radar scanners at the HAA MGR loading plants could see right through the rad room. So there was a T-piece and a square piece added on the other side to where we are now, you see with photographs. And they were added to the production batch, as it were, after the 12, and then the first 12 were retrofitted with those. The difference with 007 is it's got the load hall fuel tank mod. So when you look underneath, you'll see you've got the T-shaped long-range tank. I think it was 550 gallon. And then the air receiver that was between the compressors then also moves up into the rad room. Right. So that's the obvious difference in there. Something that actually I missed. I missed it when we announced the 60 project, so it's not in the videos, but something that you see on the earlier 60s, there's a roof strip that goes over between the fiberglass roof dome and the steel body. And on the early locomotives, it was built as a single strip, so a single piece of metal with a double row of rivets on it. And that leaked, and it was replaced in the sort of sectorisation, late sectorisation, early Shadow franchise era to be a twin strip with a bit of mastic down the middle. So again, you'll see the difference between 001 with the single strip and 007 has got the twin strip with the mastic. So there's a little thing.
All those little details make a big difference, don't they? So let's take 60001 as an example. Mm-hmm. That's got quite a few differences because of it being as delivered.
So like I mentioned earlier, the rounded corners to the buffer beam are not present on 001. That's got the plate buffer beam, for want of a better description. It's got the twin pane driver's window, which was later changed to a 3-pane. It's got the multiple working socket door is missing from the front. It was just a pure cover plate. They lasted for about 1.5 years, I think. You've also got, obviously, the single strip over the roof. On the engine room roof, now we talk the engine room now, on the engine room roof, there was actually 3 sets or 3 combinations. So 001 has nothing on there apart from the rivets. When you look at 15 over here, due to overheating early on, they added a pair of scavenger fans over there to draw the hot air out of the engine room. And then the associated grills were for cooling the motors down for the scavenger fans. But then later into the Shadow franchise era, so 15 just has the scavenger fans, but 007 is a bit later on into the franchise era, and you've got an additional vent which is further towards the opening roof hatches, and that was for the governor breather. So there's 3 distinct stages of engine room roof to look at on your model.
Wow. Okay, there's a lot to take in there.
Yeah,
isn't
sorry,
there? There's a lot to
blind
take
you
in.
with science. But
Absolutely, but no, it's great that level of detail is being included into models these days. And you mentioned earlier also the lighting is reflective of the period as well.
Yeah. So obviously the BMAC lights, the original BMAC lights, 001's got a nice feature because they've got the white lines around the original BMAC lighting, which was discontinued quite early on. We've got the new LED lights on the DCR one on 55. The GBRF one still maintains the early pattern of lights, but in the lighting area we've also got different lamp irons. So the early lamp iron was fabricated from 3 parts. So it's a triangular fillet at the bottom, a base plate for your lamp, and then the actual iron itself. This was later changed. I think it was 13 onwards, carried a different design with a bend in it, and it was just a fillet and a bent lamp iron that would sit on the front. So between, say, 15 and 1, you'll see a difference. 7's got the early type, obviously. So yeah, there's all sorts of little things, and the more you look, the more you gain from this model. This is the way I feel. You know, you look at it and you go, yeah, this is nice, but when you go into it and start appreciating the finer details.
Now, these are decorated samples, so they're not the final samples that we'll be seeing in due course. But I have noticed on the EWS one, we've got the strip of paint across the top of the silencer.
So yeah, the silencer colour will be toned down a bit. So we've already done the feedback and various changes. Things like the Transrail logo will change. So, but yeah, the EWS one, if you look at 65, it's a bit of a celebrity really, because it's the last non-Super 60 that was working. But yeah, when 65 was first painted, they obviously couldn't access the top of the silencer. So you look at the early images and there was some nice silver paint 3/4 of the way around and then a strip of rust straight down the middle. So yeah, it's an interesting one really. Yeah. But again, I'm thinking about putting another silencer in there in the box just to give people the option, because it does look a bit unusual.
So how easy is it to get inside to the model to change the decoder or change the body?
Well, like with all the Accurascale products, it's very easy to get into the decoder. It's just a simple clip off with the roof and you're into the decoder in there.
Yeah.
And then to get the body, it's just 4 clips. So very, very simple. You can take the body off in seconds almost, which gives you full access to the cabs. A nice feature with the cab, obviously, we've got the cab light in there, but we've also got lighting for the corridor that runs between because the cab door's separate to the actual cab itself, so you can see all the way through the corridor. And that area is lit as well. So you've got the lighting in the corridor, you've got lighting in the cab, full depth cab floor, and lighting on the driver's desk as well.
So a simple process if you want to, for example, put cab crew in.
Yeah. So just pop the body off. The cabs and all the wiring and the circuit board all stay on the chassis. The body comes away cleanly. There's no wires holding it on. It's pogo connectors. So everything is as easy as it could be.
So talk us through the colour schemes that you're planning.
So yeah, I mean, we've brought a selection here. There's obviously I've got others at home that we didn't bring, but so we've got 001 in construction livery as it was delivered. We've got 31 in metals. We've got 92 in coal sector. We've got 15 in Transrail, 7 in load haul livery. We've got a mainline triple grey one as well. We've got the DCR Penny Ghent as well, GBRF, and there is also the DB red one. So we've got we've tried to cater for everybody in all of the eras, and because there's so many to look at, we've got run 2s already lined up. So they're like colourful Skittles, we like to say, because you just got to collect them all.
So are all of these main range items, or are there any exclusives amongst them?
Well, you may have noticed that when we announced it, that not all of these locos were present. So a little exclusive tease here ahead of the formal announcement. But yes, most of these locomotives are in the main range announcement, but 55, 1, and a couple of others will be coming later officially as an Accurascale exclusive.
So watch this space.
Yes.
So, importantly, how much and when can we expect to see them arrive in the country?
So we are hoping to have these here by the end of the year. They might push back towards Chinese New Year. Depends on how we get with the factory slots, because with other things we're quite busy at the moment. But they're going to be priced at $169.99 for the DCC ready model, and $269.99 for the fully loaded DCC sound model, and that will be with the Accura Thrash speaker, the lifetime warranty on all models, and basically everything that you come to expect from an Accurascale model.
Well, look, Steve, thank you so much for joining us today and bringing in your brand new Accurascale Class 60s. I hope you've enjoyed our video today. You can find out more details in HM206, which is the next issue of Hornby magazine, on sale in early July. And you can see more photographs and more details on our website at keymodelworld.com. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.